calling this meeting to order, 6 o'clock. Please stand for the pledge. Will, could you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is Flag Day today even, so the pledge is especially significant today. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming out in the rain. A little drippy today, but it's okay. We're dry in here. And welcome, Jennifer. Nice to see you at our board meeting. First on the agenda is approval of the minutes from last meeting. I hope everybody had a chance to take a look at them. Are there any corrections, changes, or a motion?
I'll move that we approve.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Will. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Lloyd, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Aye.
Thank you. Minutes have been approved unanimously. Next up, board chair update. I have a couple of things I just wanted to let you know. First of all, I want to say the graduations were wonderful this year. I was very impressed with all three of them. We had the Mtsba annual meeting and the leadership forum last week, and we discussed the resolutions that we brought forward, and I'm going to go through more of those in the retreat when we have some extra time to talk about those things. There's some pretty exciting ones happening. I will talk about some things from the leadership forum also at the retreat. But the big thing I wanted to tell you about is that Mtsba has joined the new National School Board Association. It's called the Consortium of State School Board Associations. And pretty much all the states are leaving the NSBA and joining this new consortium. And we're hoping it will eventually become a blend, but Texas, Florida, Nebraska, some of the bigger states have just recently left. And if you recall, Mtsba voted last year to maintain their membership through the end of this month. Well, there have not been significant changes, so we are sticking to that and have now joined this new one. The other thing I wanted to remind trustees of, and I know Micah included this in his email, I want you all to take a look at policy 1700 sometime in the next few weeks. It is the uniform complaint procedure, and it's something we really have to follow to the letter because the buck stops with us with any complaints that are filed that have to do with school district policy, and we don't want to muddy the waters with us getting involved with it. If a complaint comes to you, you should refer them to this policy 1700, which is online, okay? Because remember, we cannot act unilaterally as a trustee. We act as a group. And I think we'll go through a little bit more of that at the retreat. Let's see. I also wanted to tell you that I was a little bit alarmed when I saw this article in Newsweek that reported 55% of educators are considering leaving the profession due to the effects of COVID. It's burnout, filling in for colleagues, just putting up with a lot of the extra things that COVID created for us, remote, synchronous learning, but 55% of educators. And I don't think we're going to be immune to that. I think when we've seen some of our personnel reports, educators are getting burned out. So I think we need to really address that and be true to our mission of being the best place to live, learn, and grow, right? Okay. That was my board chair update. Next up is human resources, personnel items, personnel action items.
I will take the lead on this. This is just routine, bi-monthly, personnel action items, which includes our hires, our resignations, terminations, of our certified, classified personnel, and then also, can include, at times, hires for positions like coaching, in clubs and other activities.
Thank you. Thank you, Micah. Any questions? Comments? Motion? I don't see any public comment. Motion.
So move to approve, personal action items as.
Thank you, Lance.
Second.
Thank you, Scott. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, Lloyd. Any opposed? Unless we take that name off the list. I wish. It has, let's see, we have the vote. It's been approved unanimously. Okay, next item, 2022-23 stipend roster.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different than what you might approve for a new hire. This is a group of individuals, both employees of the district and also could be community coaches who are moving forward again annually to have their contracts renewed for the following year. And Mark Denny's here, one of our activity directors, in case there were any questions about process or how this works. These positions, head coaches are evaluated by the activity directors, and then assistant coaches are typically evaluated by the head coaches, and then it's all brought forward in a single motion for the board to approve. Recommendation moving to next year.
A long list. Questions, comments?
I was hoping Mark could give us a short bio on all the.
Give a what?
Short bio.
I have a question.
And just, oh yeah, go ahead, Lloyd.
What determines which coach or person on this list gets which amount? How does that get negotiated? Or is it something that is written somewhere?
Yeah, it is actually a part of the collective bargaining agreement with the KEA, and those
Okay.
stipend amounts, there's a stipend committee that meets annually to approve new stipends, but also it helps set the rates for those positions. There's some longevity pay that's associated with those, and then there's also it's tied, any increases to a stipend is tied to the increase to the base in the collective bargaining agreement with the KEA.
Awesome, thank you.
Ursula?
I just couldn't figure out what the colors were for. Did it look at
Yeah,
I looked at the bottom of some of these pages.
So like at the very top, those ones that are grayed out and you see names there, those are people who have held those positions, but then have either moved into a different position, and so those are open positions. So if you look, for example, like Caleb Allen, who was an assistant varsity football coach, he's now the head football coach. And that was approved in a personnel action item, the routine stuff, when that position was open, and so those are just positions that are waiting to be filled. Yellow, that's, those are stipends that are paid out of Perkins. And do you remember, Rebecca, green and blue?
I think green is community members.
Yeah.
And
Blue is classified.
blue, yeah, it's at the very bottom of the key.
I thought there would be a key, I must have.
Wait.
Yeah.
There it is.
Oh,
Okay.
that's funny, I even looked at the driver's ed page, no, purple, I'm never gonna know what they are. I obviously, very bottom of the very. Okay.
Camouflage.
Ursula, you're not the only one. I didn't go to the very bottom.
Once I got to all the drivers at purple, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna get these.
Any other questions, comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the stipend pay as presented? Stipend list as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Ursula. Thank you, Will. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Is there any public comment? Seeing none. I know, I was just seeing if you were awake there. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Lloyd. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Next up is K-8 Community Involvement Coordinator.
All right, well, I'm excited to bring this agenda item to the full board. It's gone through the Personnel and the Finance Committee. And this is a result of a lot of conversations stemming from transformational learning, but also the listening sessions that we had with parents, community members, our staff, administrative team. And what we talked about was obviously taking a look at our curriculum and our instruction, but also doing a better job of identifying and defining the experiences that our students have at each grade level. We have a position in the high school that would be a work-based coordinator that could schedule for internships or work-based experiences for our high school kids. And this would be a sister position, so to speak, for our K-8 students. And with the K-5, it would be aligning field experiences, some with direct instructional ties back to work that's going on in the classroom, and other activities are just activities and experiences that we want our students to have. We currently have 99 classrooms in kindergarten through 5th grade, and our goal for next year would be have this position coordinate 2 activities for each classroom. Be right around 200 activities, so they'd be busy. First year coordinating those activities, finding what it is for each class, but then also just making the contact, writing the letters to send to parents, and all of those odds and ends, transportation included.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah.
So how long have we had the high school position?
I think there's been a long-standing high school position, and Mike and Kelly could speak to that, of like the career center and coordinating those internships. We applied for the grant earlier this year for the work-based director, and we were able to pay for that, to start that position as a full-time standalone position, in addition to what is already existing in the building in the career counseling office. Is that mostly accurate? So this August would be the start of the new position. It'd also be the start of this position. This position would be similarly funded by a grant. It would be funded this next year through the ESSER funds, and then the following year and the subsequent year through Transformational Learning Grant. And then this position will sunset at the end of 3 years.
So it's not getting kicked off from nowhere. We have had some experience with this at the high school level.
Yeah, at the high school level, but not at the K-8 level.
Yeah, that's
So
a
they
little
would be
different.
Yep, they would be pioneering that in the K-8 environment.
And part of my question was actually related to his, how we did used to have I think we called them a gifted and talented coordinator for the I think it was K through 6. But, and they brought in writers to come speak to classes, and so I wanted a little bit about how similar or different this would be to that position.
Similar in the sense that they would be coordinating with other, what I would call mini grants. So we have a Montana Arts Council grant that we're working through. We're facilitating bringing in local artists to work within our schools with our teachers. We can take that. Logan Health put up a couple mini grants that we would apply for. But different in the sense they wouldn't be coordinating gifted and talented specific curriculum objectives. They'd be focused on community involvement activities.
But it is full class, you know, when you say things like apprenticeships, I start to think that that's an individual student. This is more an entire class experience than an individual. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, K-5 would definitely be the whole class, and we probably schedule most of the activities by grade level. And so when the grade level of students is out of the building, we'd use the time with the teachers for further transformational learning professional development. The teachers may or may not be joining their students on all of these activities. But then in the middle school is where it would probably be look more like it does in high school.
I think it's nice. Now, the actual question I had, before you started talking was, so, you know, I've always been a proponent of that. You know, I thought that G&T person was awesome to have somebody who coordinated bringing experiences into the classroom with younger readers. I've always missed that position deeply for the 6 years or so since we've had lost it. I don't remember precisely, but you know that there's always community pressure on more people in the central office building, and that's always a thing we need to be cautious of and aware of. And I somewhat feel that we have an issue of tactics over strategies here. Like when we hired Mr. Jensen last year, we sort of said, we're not going to be looking at individual central office positions to coordinate this or that, like some districts do. We're going to hire more generalized people and put them through all the things we need. So this, to me, feels like a real change in strategy, and I'm not even sure if I'm for it or against it, but I guess I feel that we need to enter into it very aware of what our broad strategy is. And I almost feel that I'm not ready to okay this position that I dearly love, because I feel like we should make a list of all the possible specific coordinators we would think of and then prioritize them rather than higgledy-piggledy say, oh, we have a chance to do this one, do this one. You know what I mean? And I'm saying that, yeah, we essentially made a choice last year, and if we're changing that choice, I'm fine with it, but I think that we need to think through exactly what overall positions we want and, again, prioritize the entire list. Yeah, so I don't feel that I personally am ready to vote on this one because I, have that concern.
Rebecca, can I make a comment based on your concern? I think it's a very valid concern. However, I'm looking at the difference between board responsibilities and administration responsibilities. The board has identified community engagement as one of our important goals moving forward into the future. And I think the objectives, the steps to achieve those goals is up to the administration. And I applaud Matt for coming up with a creative way to deal with this. And I agree that I think we should, pay attention to it, pay close attention to it. But I think us deciding, are we going to, hire this position or not is up to the administration, not to the board.
Yeah, I don't think I'm so much I'm saying that, I think we need to thoughtfully think about all the possible positions and, choose which are most important at, I said, I It's unfortunate, 'cause I really do love this position actually, but I'm worried that it means we won't have travel coordinator, all the other things, things that we thought about last year when we, chose to go with the generalist.
I have a question and or comment.
Go ahead, Lloyd, go ahead.
With the struggles that we're having right now with hiring people and the inflation in the valley, is this something that we could hold off on until we tackle those problems instead of spending this amount of money right now? Is it something that we can hold for a year and try to see where we're going to be financially with getting teachers in the positions that we already have?
Yeah, certainly we could, table it or not approve it. That's not what I'm advocating for, but I think the caveat with this position is it's coming from funds that are outside of the general fund. And so
Oh, gotcha.
They're, if we were trying to do it to serve that purpose, there's not a direct tie here to the general fund. But I would say in response to Rebecca's concerns, I don't disagree. I think that, I'm very thankful and appreciative that you made the decision that you made last year. Brought me on board. So I'll start there.
Sorry.
I personally thought that was a good choice. But we've been pretty ambitious about going after grants. And, when you take on a new scope of work that's associated with a grant, it's definitely, humbling in the sense that we have full plates. And so when we take on new scopes of work, apply for and get new amounts of money that fall in different pots away from the general fund, it's an opportunity to create things that will be supportive of our students, our community, our teachers. What we're conscientious of is also the timeline and when these things sunset. Grant sunset, ESSER is going to sunset, transformational learning is going to sunset. So we need to be thoughtful about what we're starting now, what we can get in place, and then how we can leave it for our staff that they can sustain it. And that's something that I think this position models really well. We will be up and running. First year is going to be a real heavy lift. There's no secret about that. And then year 2, year 3 is going to be busy, but year 3 is going to be focused on a lot of transition. We want to leave this with a lot of contacts, a lot of the paperwork completed, so that teachers can choose to pick it up or not at the building level, but they won't have to, be involved in that tremendous amount of startup energy that it takes to get. But you're not wrong in kind of noticing that, how we get all of these objectives met, and we're putting people to it. The health, wellness, specialist position, we applied for a grant, got that. The numerous other positions. So you're right that we are trying to find extra funds to take on these extra needs that we have.
And just a statement, it was not Matt Jensen in particular, it was Matt Jensen's position. Sorry about that. Really glad for clarity.
Ursula?
Yeah, I was just gonna, like, a feedback kind of on what you said. I think that there is enough flexibility in this position, and I think that it is a big enough task in the beginning. And I think that because of the element where they can go for grants, that this could be a tool to potentially open up some of those other, maybe more specific things in the future. Like, I see this as a good path, getting us to some of those other specific things that you were talking about. I don't think that they are exclusive. I think that they actually go really, really good together, like this for now, opening up opportunities for later.
Thanks, Ursula. Will?
Yeah, I'm just 100% on board with this. Because I'm thinking about 99 classes of kids next year. We're going to have 2 extraordinary opportunities to span their year, and it's totally worth it for me.
Thank you, Will. Diane?
Yeah, and I would say we have this transformational learning grant. This is a chance to expand into our community and into this position. One of our problems is that we have this problem connecting with our community and communication with our community, and I'm hoping that's a goal that we can try and reach, and this position is an opportunity.
Other comments? Questions? Public comment? Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we approve this position as presented.
Thank you, Lance.
I retract everything that I
Not everything. Is there an elementary trustee that would like to make a motion?
Moved.
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second? Thank you, Ursula. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the community involvement coordinator. All in favor, elementary only, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Next, request for professional leave.
So from time to time, the board will get a request from the administration to approve certain types of leave. And in the collective bargaining agreement for teachers, there are a variety of them. There's military leave, there's leave to serve in public office. Some of those we don't really have a choice on because they are covered by statute. But then there are other leaves like sabbatical or professional leave, or there's actually one called other leave. And they have to go through a little bit of a process. And this was a request that came forward from Jeff Hornby on behalf of Jacqueline Ruffley for the 22-23 school year. And the explanation for that leave and what that means is contained in Article 12.8 of the collective bargaining agreement. It actually goes through 12.8.3 and references, the fact that when someone's out on professional leave, they will continue to accrue seniority. Number one, they have to be tenured to be able to request. And then number two, they continue to accrue years of service. And Jacqueline is wanting to finish and pursue her master's degree in educational leadership. In full disclosure, she's going to be out part of the time on FMLA leave. And then for the remaining time, she wants to continue that. A degree in educational leadership often requires hundreds and hundreds of hours of internship type service. So Jeff was supportive of this. She was already going to be out on FMLA leave. One of the things that he saw as being a benefit is that he would be able to hire a one-year-only teacher for that full year, rather than approving a FMLA leave and then doing something different, and so trying to combine the two. But we are asking the board to approve this. We don't see him very often. We had one last year, Levi Berkey, if you remember him. He was a Truman Scholar and went to Audit. And he's coming back to us, so we're excited about that. And so yeah, this is the request.
Questions? Comments?
I'll make my comment. I think this is great for her, and I move to approve it.
Okay, so is there a second? Elementary? Thank you, Jennifer. It's been moved and seconded. Elementary trustees in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Was that Jennifer's first second? Do we get
It
our?
was.
Yes, it was. Okay, next up, the KFCP ratification. Mike, are you doing this one too?
Nope, Matt and I are trading off tonight.
Okay,
Every other item.
tag team.
Oh, you're not including Callie in any of this?
No comment. Supervising as usual.
Like, I'm done.
I see that positions have changed, or chairs have changed.
This is what training wheels looks like, Jack.
myself was just saying, this is a great group of people to work with and appreciate in our building, this classified staff that represents all of the positions that make up this bargaining unit. And it was just a big team coming together. So obviously the union has several members of their leadership team that participate in negotiations, but then we also, on the administrative side, have a fairly large team, a couple board members, a couple building level administrators, central office team, and then just a lot of work back and forth. And the entire process stretched over several weeks, and it was just good. It was healthy to go back and forth and try to solve problems. I think Denise and Delia in the business office were the busiest, crunching numbers, but the rest of us participated as well. The first page, or actually I'm going to put together a highlighted list, not to cheat anything, but just to give you a main focus here. There were, at the beginning, some language and grammatical edits that you'll notice, and some highlights, but they were really just cleaning up the document. And then the more significant changes had to do with bereavement. Bereavement leave was a provision that was in the old CDA, or the existing one, I guess. And it's just not consistent with Montana code or our other collective bargaining agreements. So we're going to put that in its place with sick leave. And then there was a provision in our insurance category where it was called a V2 clause, where it just meant the same as the classified staff or the certified staff. So we're going to spell out the specifics of their insurance benefits inside this document, which is handy for reference. But more importantly, there was a shift within the entire district to go to a 70-30 split, and that's also represented in this agreement. And then we talked about, and it started out with a conversation about evaluation, an evaluation process, and eventually it landed on adding a mentorship program, which I think came from one of our trustees as a good idea. We've seen tremendous success with the KEEP program, with our certified employees. So we're going to do our best to create a mirror program for the classified staff. And then, so that was most of the language transitions. And then when we start talking about job classifications and salary structures and increases, it got a little bit more complicated. The first thing that we did was we partnered prior to the negotiations with Kathy Krigo out of Missoula, and the union and the district came together and said, we want to do an audit of our current structure and see if people are placed in the right classification or if we need some movement. Another goal we had was we just wanted to see an increase to the base wage. We wanted to see some of our employees that we start in different positions start at a higher rate. We've seen our other partner districts around the Flathead Valley increasing wages for those starting positions, and we just want to be competitive. Some sort of a market adjustment plus a reclassification. So Kathy came in, she did a nice job, I think, of being pretty thorough. Started out with, she was going to review the job descriptions, and then just a couple interviews with a couple of classifications, and then we talked her into a couple more, and then by the end of it, there was only a few that she didn't do. So we came together on that. There was a reclassification from 6 classes to 3 was her recommendation. And we cut, so if you look at the salary schedule as it exists, it'd be at the back of this document. This represents an update, so it's not going to show us exactly what we need, but if you picture the existing document would have 6 columns here, and the 6 columns would be 1 through 6, 1 being the lowest, and then this is where employee starts. We cut columns 1, 2, and 4. So this A actually represents the old 3, and this B represents the old 5, and this C represents the old 6. So I think that was a good recognition from Kathy and one that we were happy to accept. The union also made a proposal for a one-time only bonus of $500 for next year. We countered with originally a proposal for $750 paid in 2 installments. And then after we went back and forth during a couple negotiation meetings, we realized that, you know, we do have some funds right now that we can commit to this one-time only bonus idea, but it's not something we can embed in an agreement like this that would last forever. So we countered with two years worth of bonus, but $1,000 paid in 2 installments. So I think that was pretty well received. And then when the dust settled and we did a pretty significant market adjustment, which represented an average of 11%. Is that correct, Denise? Average across all employees was 11%. We saw some employees receive about 16%, and then some employees received 0. We actually had 3 employees receive 0. We had about 30 employees receive between 1 and 10%. So what we wanted to do for those employees for 1 year only is if they received a 0% increase, they would receive for next year a $1 increase. If they were between 1% and 10%, they receive a 50-cent increase for 1 year only. And the 1 year only was intended to pacify this idea that everybody else was getting a bump and those folks weren't getting a bump, but it was also intended to create some space for the reclassification challenge document, so to speak, to be able to play out. So in Kathy Kriegel's recommendation for the classification, she also set forward a process for us to follow. So it outlined any sort of appeal for a group of our employees that they thought they were classified in the wrong spot. They could be reclassified through this process. So it gives some space for that, but it would sunset June 30th, 2023. And in 2023-24, we negotiated a 1% increase to the matrix, and then it would have the second year of the bonus. And then in 2024-25, it'd be another 1% increase, but the bonus would fall off on that year. This is a 3-year agreement. The union did vote, and they voted to ratify the agreement. I would say that there were some people really excited about the agreement, and then there was a group of folks that weren't as excited. Ultimately, it passed by about 2/3 vote, but that 1/3 represented a pretty sharp increase in no votes from historical precedent. I don't know all of the details, but my understanding is that historical precedent has been maybe around 12 folks voting no instead of 1/3 of the union. So this document, I think the process we went through was very thorough. It represents a pretty big shift, especially for our lowest paid employees. Across the board, pretty significant increases. But again, if you max out the earning potential of your job classification, it did not provide much of an increase for those folks.
Does it, can you tell us, and just from being there, does it seem like the no votes, it was kind of based on that fact that like it wasn't affecting the people that had maxed out the most, or was there any other factor that we should like know about and kind of have in our heads to rattle around?
I would say the 2 major categories that people fall in the no votes would be, one, if you're maxed out on the earning potential of your classification and you're seeing a lesser increase, even though you get a 1 year, $1 or 50 cents bump, that's going to go away. So that was part of it. I think the other main issue that came up was that when you do a reclassification, some people go up in a classification and some people go down. And so there was this sense of how I am measured or valued comparatively to my peers in the classifications. And there was some interpretation that now I'm being measured less than. And that definitely wasn't our intent. I think that all of those classifications are just incredibly hardworking folks that play a critical role in various departments of our organization to make this go every day. But that did happen, and so outside of those 2 main groups, I don't know. I didn't feel any negative comments outside of those 2.
Yeah, and part of it, you know, as we work through it and, you know, administratively from our side of the table, you know, we knew we wanted to do something to address, what we felt are pretty low wages and just how, at least in Flathead Valley and probably other areas too, that, the public sector employees were quickly outpaced, by private sector. You know, so when you look up there and you see a food service worker starting at $13.27 an hour, and then you drive by Taco John's and starting at $15 an hour with a $500 signing bonus, it's really hard to compete, for people in those positions. You know, and so we went into it with the mindset that we wanted to try and address some of that. Their initial proposal was a $1.75 increase across the board, for every position. And, you know, the math that we did, our total package was far more than what they had even asked for. And it's interesting though, because, you know, it kind of points to the fact that money doesn't solve all the problems. You know, especially when people, you know, if I was in this classification and now I'm in this one, I view myself as less, or someone, even though I make more money than I did before in the other classification, it just, there's a mental side of that that, is challenging to work through. But it also included, you know, as part of our negotiations, you know, we tapped into the insurance increase that the board approved, and calculated that as kind of a percent of the overall group. You know, and so at the end of the day, we were really putting a lot on the table. And, you know, we could have argued that, you know, we don't agree with Kathy's, recommendations. So all the paras moved from class 4 to class 6. We could have said, oh, no, we don't think so. We continue to be at class 5. We took Kathy's evaluation at face value and said, we can agree with what you put out there. You know, that is not our area of expertise. And so we just wanted to make sure that we felt like our people felt taken care of and supported.
I have one more just little question about it. The people with the $1 raise, that will go away next year, but they will move up on the steps. The steps are, you know, it is like $1, like nobody is going to make less next year than they did this year, is that right?
So, the best way to think about this is think about it in this year, next year, and the year after. So next year, those folks will make $1 more. The year after, that dollar goes away, but they will still be making more than they currently make this year. But that is a tough part of it. It's the same logic with the bonus. You know, next year, everybody can get bonus. The next year, everybody can get a bonus. That third year, that bonus goes away. So if you're looking at your total salary, you could argue that my salary is going down that third year because I'm not getting the bonus. True. That, you know, our intent of the dollar and the 50 cents and the bonus is to provide the funds where we can. They're not tied, they do sunset.
Any other questions or comments? Who is the negotiating committee? Heather, Scott, and Jack. Thank you for working on that with Matt and everybody else. Great. Yeah. Any other comments from negotiation team?
Matt did a very good job outlining everything and talking to everybody, and the classified was long overdue to get competitive pay and not lose individuals. It's a hard group to retain people, and we're competing with everybody else in the valley in private industry, and we needed to bring them on par with that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? You want to make a motion?
Do I move that we approve the CBA as presented?
Thank you, Will. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Heather. It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next order of business is the insurance MOA.
Yeah, so, back into negotiations talk, back in 2019 and 2020, the district sat down with the four associations, so grounds and maintenance, custodial, classified, and KEA, working to try and resolve some of our self-funded insurance woes and what was an appropriate contribution from the district. And so we negotiated that successfully, and we kind of arrived at the 70-30 split idea in general. I think that worked well. But then in subsequent years, as we saw increases coming because of the Affordable Care Act, those increases were being shifted to employees who had a spouse or children or their entire family on the insurance plan. And so the board graciously approved changing that, but that change also necessitated a update to the old MOA that was approved and now requires a new MOA. And that language is up there at the top. And there were two things that we were trying to do with this. One was to, in part A, was just that the way that the funding works and what's important for the KEA and all of our groups and for the district is to honor the intent of the agreement. And so sometimes, 5 years from now, it could be a different superintendent, different KEA president, or someone, and they're going, well, wait a minute, that's not what I read in this language. What I read is this. And so we're really trying to clarify intent on this. That the 70-30 split is going to be as close to 70-30 to a whole plan, but what we're really looking at is that those individual tiers are as close to a 70-30. Sometimes it might come out, and it gets complicated when Scott does all of his slopes and ratios. It might come out to something like 70.1 to 29.9, or 69.9 to 29.1, or whatever it is. So that's what we were trying to do in this. And then the next part was to clarify the district contribution rate for retired teachers of the health plan. Previously, it wasn't accurately stipulated that it would be for the employee only, and we didn't want people who were maybe employee spouse to think, oh, I'm going to get the same district contribution when I retire and keep my spouse on the plan and get an increased benefit from that. So we just wanted to clarify that it stays at that combined rate for that individual employee, and that it doesn't include family or spouse or children in that.
This is just a grammatical suggestion, but the heading for B, section B, is kind of unclear at the end because there's two prepositions.
Oh, on the of the? We can clean that up.
It's down in B as well.
Yeah.
in both lines of B.
Well, yeah. We can clean that.
I know.
Well, I'll be honest, I gave it to Denise to review, and I was only worried about the dollar amounts and the financial.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone comfortable making a motion?
I move that we approve the insurance MOA language.
Thank you, Ursula. Is there a second? Thank you, Jennifer. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Unless Lloyd is actually
I know, it's great. Next up, bus route mileage approval for existing routes.
Yes, so this is an annual event for the board to approve the mileage for existing routes as well as bus stop approvals. So I'll work us through all of these, but what you're looking at is a list of the routes that we have and which contractor and or if the district is providing that transportation, the number of stops, the round trip miles. I think the longest round trip was 138 miles. And all of these, once approved by the board, also go to a county transportation committee that's led by County Superintendent Jack Hagensberger, and then all of these get approved through that committee process. And so we contract with Harlow's, Treasure State, Stevens, and Z Busing, and the rates did not change from the 21-22 school year to the 22-23. Looking for approval on those?
Will?
This isn't related to the mileage so much, but looking at the busing issue, where are we with those attached extended arms? Something is happening?
Yes, yep, they're being installed. A lot of them already have been.
Any other questions? Someone want to make a motion?
So I'll move to approve the bus routes for 2022-23.
Thank you, Heather. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Will. It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next up, bus stop approval for K-8 school year.
So we have K-8 and we have high school bus stops on here, and Andy does a good job of putting all these together and notices where each of those stops are located. The ones that are truly approved by the board are stops that students have to cross the roadway to get to the bus. We try and do everything we can to eliminate that and eliminate any highway routes. The challenge when it comes to buses is not so much getting down a driveway, or it's getting back out. And we every year we field comments or questions or concerns about this from parents, you know, or even passing motorists who say, you know, gosh, why do you have this bus stop here? And part of our response is that we still feel it's safer for the bus to stop on the highway than it would be for us to move that stop off the highway and have kids walk the highway to get to their bus stop if their parents can't transport them. So that's part of the rationale. And so there's always some consternation around it, and Andy does a really good job of handling all of those. And then once the school year starts and bus registration and all that has gone on, there may be some requests for new stops that aren't identified on here, and those will come back in front of the board again when those are updated. So, and if you look at the maps, pull up a map there, Matt. All the blue dots are bus stops that have students currently assigned to those stops. The green dots or triangles are other bus stops that have been identified in the route, but don't currently have any students at those residents that would need to be picked up at those locations.
Is that, no students living there or no students using the bus?
Potentially one or both, yeah.
What are the red dots or triangles?
Is there a red triangle on there?
Okay, am I seeing things?
Right,
No, they're
There's
there.
no, like,
Twin Road.
yeah, middle.
They didn't tell me what those
Like
were.
at Twin Bridges.
Maybe it was a stop that had previously been on there and then they moved it.
A lot of bus stops.
It is. Well, and it's nice that we have a piece of software that does this,
Yeah.
because in the old days, it was thumbtacks and yarn.
That's great.
Any other questions?
Do we buy that software?
Yes.
Is there an elementary trustee that would like to make a motion? Thank you, Lance. Is there a second? Thank you, Ursula. Any public comment? Seeing none, elementary trustees in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next is the high school bus stop approval.
I would tell you the exact same thing if you wanted to hear it again.
What are those red ones?
I don't know. But I will find out for you, Ursula.
The high school one does not have red triangles.
Ah.
Do I move that we accept the high school bus routes as presented?
Thank you, Will.
No, second.
Thank you, Heather. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment? Seeing,
That one, the flash
Just,
has the red triangle.
comment that,
High school.
with that
That's
software,
why-
there'll be
that's why
no
it does.
new
Wait for
taxes.
that. That's why. Make them come to the front.
Okay.
3 minutes.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next up, school security audit.
Yeah, so in this one, you can see my explanation, but, you know, it's school safety, school security, always an area of focus for us, as we go, throughout the year. And earlier this year, this fall, maybe you remember there was some TikTok, viral, threats. You know, one of them was, there's gonna be a school shooting at GHS. You know, and then, well, there's Glacier High School, there's Garfield High School, there's Grover High School, so no one knew what it was. But it certainly has, these kind of things have spurred conversations, locally, nationally. Doubly superintendents have been talking about this. And we have biweekly meetings, and we invited Jason Russell to join us. He is a consultant with Secure Educational Consultants, and is also works extensively with MSGIA, who used to be our insurance carrier for the district, in looking at preventative issues that are related to school security. And then, so we've been having those conversations. Billings and Great Falls had already worked with him to come in and do a security audit of their schools. Butte and Kalispell had been talking with him about that. And then we had the Texas shooting, which started to raise these elevated concerns. You know, and it's not a secret that at Platte High School, we don't have a secure entrance. You know, we have some door locks and automated things like that, but if someone wanted to have access to the building, they would, similar to Glacier High School, similar to Kalispell Middle School, similar to Lenderman Education Center. And so those kind of things, you know, it's complicated. It's not as easy as just saying, oh, well, we're going to install, you know, a secure vestibule to this building. When you think about the middle school and its layout, where you know, the main entrances are on either side of the cafeteria, the offices are up above, they're a floor above, those kind of things. And so when this came out, you know, when the discussion started happening, probably more so in earnest with our community, I had several meetings, emails, phone calls with people who had expressed some concern. The idea was that, if we're gonna do anything, it's gonna take a process, but it's also gonna take an evaluation of what we currently have in place. And, Jason Russell and I talked and exchanged some emails, also worked with our Northwest Mass group. And then out of the blue, I got a call from a community member, also a state legislator, who said, hey, what can we do to help? What do you guys need? Give me 3 things that we can do. And so through that conversation, we talked about hiring a consultant to come in and evaluate all of our school sites. But then also in a broader sense, any school in the valley that was interested in securing those services. And so we have, I think, 9 schools that, in the valley that have identified. Some have already gone through different processes to do that work. And so they're just waiting on a green light from the board to go down this direction. And then they will start in earnest raising funds to do this for all the area schools that want to participate in it. And I had the opportunity to review Billings audit after it was completed. It's confidential information. These aren't documents that are posted publicly. You know, some people would call and say, I want to see, you know, all of your security protocols and what you do. And we go, well, actually, we don't do that. There's a reason. You don't publish, you know, school maps and different things. You don't want someone to have access to information that could help them if they wanted to do harm to our students or staff. So Jason is willing to come. This is his proposal. He does charge $2,000 per school. So it's not I thought maybe I could get a negotiated rate if we had multiple schools. It's like, nope, it's very thorough. The contractor, the agreement that you see before you includes, it's pretty comprehensive. So it's not only looking at just physical security of the building, but also outward looking to where the building sits in the community, what streets are going by. It's your camera systems, your software, your door locking mechanisms, all of those things. And it's going to come with some recommendations. And then I think that's a discussion for the board about how we would want to proceed, what things we have budget for currently in the budget, or if this becomes part of a future bond, all of those things. So it's more complicated than just, yeah, we're going to do this or do that. But wanted to bring that in front of the board and see if there's any discussion that would like to be had.
The question I have, Micah, is can we promote or ask for a levy based on school safety?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's great information to have, and I like the idea too that more than the building reserve levy, future bond. In the near future, it'd be great to have that information, just have it all together. I'm assuming it's going to be.
Yeah.
That's kind of along the same lines, because I assume it's going to be expensive. Are there more things like grants and things like that for this? And is any of it in any way like large enough to make a dent?
There are grants. They're competitive. We just got an email last week about extending a deadline to a grant. Jason and I reviewed all that was involved, and we basically had until today to get it done. So we got the email on Thursday, and it would have been done today, which included, it's huge. These are federal grants, and there were actually 2 of them. One was to look at and address security solutions for schools, and they were limited, but they were high dollar, like $500,000, which isn't even going to scratch the surface for what I project we would need. But then there were also grants for employing more school resource officers, but they have some stipulations. You know, you add them in, they pay for it for a period of 3 years, and then the police department has to pick up the burden of that cost. Or in our arrangement with our SROs, we would pick up the cost if we wanted to continue with that. So I did share that with Doug Overman and Brian Hano if they were interested in pursuing that. So
So the fundraising that this community member is willing to do is to cover the costs of the assessment. And then based upon what they come up with and what we agree to, then that would come out of grants or a voted levy, whatever we would.
Yeah, and kind of the way I envision this, I don't, for all the schools and districts that would be involved, it's probably around $60,000, that would need to be raised to do all of this. What I would envision if we didn't get the 60, let's say it was 50,000, we would just split it equally, with the other districts, and then everybody would pay a percentage. So it might be $2,000 a building at face value for our district, but if they raise enough, we might only be paying $200 to complete it and get it worked out.
Other questions? Comments? Anybody comfortable making a motion?
Do I move to approve the proposed security audit by SEC upon funding either through private donations, Fund 15, or interlocal?
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Scott. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Right. Let's see. Moving on to business contracts, engineering contract.
Yeah, so, April this year, our contract with Morris & Merrily expired, and, we put out an RFP, RFQ, so a request for, proposal or request for qualifications, to, see what interest there would be in providing these services for the school district. Ursula and Lance and me, Matt, myself, Greg, Kim Wilson was on there. So we, put out the RFP. We had 3 parties that were interested. All 3, a little bit different. Morris & Merrily is a true, just basic engineering firm. And I shouldn't say basic, they cover all areas of engineering. Cushing Carroll, which is an architectural firm with engineering services attached to it. And then there was another group called DCI Engineers, which was a conglomeration of multiple engineering firms coming together to provide all the services. So we reviewed all the proposals, we ranked them, we offered interviews to all 3 groups. We interviewed all 3 groups, and it was the decision of the committee to select Morris & Merrily. And so then we need to have a contract with Morris & Merrily. And that contract is attached. It's quite lengthy, but and there's a second piece to it. There's a summary rate sheet, and that is updated typically every spring by Morris & Merrily for their services. So, and then typically the way it would work is, so they're under contract with us, and then if we have a project, like say we need to build secure vestibules for our buildings, we would work with them to create a project directive. We have another project directive that's coming up here pretty quick for reducing lead in school waters. Got an email today. We're 99% confirmed for that grant. We're just waiting for the governor's signature. And so there's a lot of pre-work that has to happen, timelines, schedules, and different things. So that is, the request tonight is to approve the engineering services agreement between Kalispell Public Schools and Morris & Merrily.
Any questions? Comments? Rebecca?
I move to approve the contract with Morris & Merrily as presented.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there a second? Thank you, Will. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Moving on, MQEC membership dues.
Yep, so every year for probably the last, gosh, I don't know, 10 years maybe, our board has approved, being a member of the Montana Quality Education Coalition. And that is a advocacy group, that works on behalf of school districts, to advocate, in the legislature, for that constitutionally protected, right to public education in Montana. They have done great work over the years, and we are very supported by them in our efforts to see adequate funding, to see legislation that supports public education, all of those things. So we're one of 98 districts that participate in QEC.
Are those Montana districts?
Yes.
Questions, comments? They're a very good partner. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the membership dues with the MQEC.
Thank you, Ursula. Is there a second? Thank you, Lance. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Lloyd, I do appreciate you chiming in right away.
No problem.
Kind of throws me off a little bit. Next up, MHSA fees.
Yeah, so, school districts in Montana that participate in high school activities belong to the Montana High School Association. And every year annually, we pay dues to belong to that organization. And we are charged by the activity, that you, belong to or belong in or compete in. And, it's $250 per activity. And Montana High School Association, is a body. They have a board, they have an executive director, and they work through calendars and the Coaches Association and the Officials Association, and help bring activities alive in Montana. And so we're, from a, I guess, an organizational standpoint, pretty inexpensive to belong to. One of the other components of this is that they also have a catastrophic liability insurance policy that we also pay into, and then they also have a concussion policy that we pay into as well. So this is for both Flathead and Glacier High School, and I believe, I go back to it, the total amount was $14,630.
Middle school? Aren't there some middle school NHSA sanctioned activities?
Nope. Just high school. We mirror and mimic a lot of what we do in the high school association. There's no,
District Music Festival. Isn't District Music Festival HSA? Maybe not, maybe it's state, okay.
Micah, so it's $250 for the wrestling program that we've been paying. When we added girls wrestling, was that a separate $250, or do they fold in under the $250?
whole event.
Any other questions? I know there are a lot of organizations, and yeah, keeping them all separate, what they do can be a little daunting at times. Anybody comfortable making a motion? Arm wrestle over it, come on.
Move to approve the MHSA fees for participation.
Thank you, Heather. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah. Rebecca's ready. Okay, any public comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
And Will, I may not have understood your question, but in the MHSA, the wrestling is two separate. The girls' wrestling is its own category.
Oh,
So, yeah,
so it's not both, it's not just wrestling,
yeah,
boys and girls, there are two separate,
yep.
okay. So when we added girls wrestling, we added another 250.
Well, 500 include both high schools,
Oh, it's per,
school.
okay,
Yep.
All right.
So it's not by a district.
okay, that was clarification.
Next up, staff device rotation. Eric, you're taking this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God.
So first up, got a quote from Dell. Total price came in, Dell at,
It's at the top of the document too.
yeah, so, came in 38,000 total. Roughly, like when we first asked for price, like just rough pricing on these, retail, we're probably close. Working with Dell and looking at a bulk purchase, bring pricing down. And so this is part of a program we're instituting to take care of around 80 folks that are not directly, in the building's budget. So we always have to find unique ways to fund their advisors, and so they don't always get taken care of in the time and there. So we put them together in this rotation. So every year we'll take care of around 15 to 16 people. Here's this year's list. Take care of the business office, our facilities team, a couple guys from the IT team, starting to key out with the new device, and then, Justin from the bus barn. Questions on this one?
Eric, are these laptops or desktops or?
These are all laptops. These folks that are mobile, we're moving them to this kind of single device setup where they can utilize it as a desktop and then also.
I feel like I ask this every time, but just reassure me, because they seem like expensive laptops, that this is like the most basic that we can get. It's like they need the things that this has.
Yes, correct. Yeah, we've worked through, what makes the most sense to make sure that they're lasting. They're gonna still perform and support what they need to do 5 years. The pricing also includes a full 5-year warranty, battery warranty.
So like these aren't positions where you could get people in with like a Chromebook or something like
No.
that.
No, and there will be like, next year, I think we have quite a few people that will be on like that Chromebook, style. So we're taking into consideration what their job requires.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Anybody want to make a motion?
Making all the motions, I guess. I move that we approve the staff device purchase as presented.
Thank you, Ursula. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Heather. It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment? Seeing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Our school e-finance upgrade.
So we are, due to upgrade our e-finance system. We currently are using version 19.4. We'll be moving up, to version 20.4 with this upgrade. They do a 18-month release cycle on this, and so we're skipping the previous version and jumping all the way to 22.4. So the basic plan moving forward will be able to do something. And I do have, there's this quote and then a second quote for a couple of add-on modules that we'll be looking at as well. The total price, actually, it would work down to around $47,000. We're able to combine these together, and so they're able to trim a few things and discount a few things. Total between them ends up being $47,000. Questions on these?
Eric, so the dollar amount on this,
Yeah, so that was the original total,
Different.
and then I just got an updated quote today.
okay. Nicely done. Any other questions? How about a motion?
I move that we approve
Yay,
the
Ursula.
Power School e-finance upgrade as presented.
Okay, thank you, Ursula. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Heather. It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next, Ghs Access Control.
All right, my turn. Access control for Glacier High School and KMS Next. This is to upgrade the door system controls. Currently, the system is legacy with the building when it was built, so we're looking at a 17-year-old system. Server is on its last leg, and so this would upgrade all components inside the building. We'll continue to use the wiring infrastructure. Upgrade and bring the system into compliance with the rest of our. Yeah, Jason, just ask a question. Will they be able to do that this summer? Yeah.
Any other questions? Ursula?
I have no questions.
You want to make a motion?
Sure, I move that we approve the Ghs Access Control as presented.
Thank you, Ursula.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Scott. It's been moved and seconded. Any public comments?
The last thing you guys voted on, I didn't get.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. KMS Access Control.
KMS, a little more expensive. They do not currently have an access control system on their doors, so this would be a brand new installation. Big campus to cover, but same situation, get them in line, all automated. They'll all get key cards as well.
Here, as well, can you get that done this summer? Oh, on the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. And they said they can get it done.
So if we're doing, I mean, I assume this is about security of the stores, if we're doing an overall audit of what big changes we want to do on all buildings of security, do we want to do a change just before we analyze what big changes we want to make, or do we want to wait till security audit? Because maybe they do something totally different.
I don't think they're gonna say to do something totally different. I think this is just going to be, it won't be an adverse finding in the audit for them to say you need to have secure access.
There won't be a much bigger thing that they want to do instead of this.
Yeah.
Good point, though. Mhm. Any other questions? About a motion? Somebody besides Ursula.
It's elementary only.
Oh,
Okay, I
thank
move
you.
that we approve the Ghs Access Control project that includes installation.
Thank you, Ursula. Is there a second by an elementary?
I'll
trustee?
second.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment? Seeing none. All in favor, elementary trustees only, please. Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next up, KPS Daycare Memorandum of Understanding. Matt?
And one of the things that we've been hearing from our staff and frankly the community is the challenge with finding daycare availability for their kiddos. We sent out a survey to our staff. We've actually sent two and had a pretty overwhelming response, both in support of the daycare, even from the staff that don't have kids, but recognize it would be important for their colleagues. But then also, we had nearly 50 staff members respond in the affirmative that they were looking for daycare spots and services for their kids, and that represented about 90 different kids from those 50 staff members. What's in front of you is a memorandum of understanding between the district and a co-op of parents. And so the idea here is that the district would allow facility use to a co-op of parents, which would hire their own director, and the daycare services would be managed by that director. The district would not participate in any of that. But what we would allow is that group of staff members to organize and coordinate one of our spaces. We currently clean those spaces. We've only identified 2 spaces across the district. I was hoping for more, but between those 2 spaces, one at Edgerton and one at Peterson, I think we'd be able to take between 6 and 10 kids at each site, and it depends on the ages of kids, and there's some state parameters that are pretty tight. But to start, and it's more spaces than are currently available. The longevity of this is pretty uncertain, to be honest. I think we're all a little nervous when we watch the development happen in our valley and what that's going to do to the spaces inside of our school. I think that there's some rooms in each one of our schools that are likely too small for full-size classrooms, that are used for other offices or staff work areas that could be used for daycare spaces. But this would be just for 1 year in this contract, or this MOU would be renewed in August to see if there was space for it. So the agreement is to allow this group to use our facilities, and then they would fall under all the other rules of our school when they're in our space, but we do not have a financial obligation to the daycare.
So they hire the director, and then the director would put like a staff member in each of the open spaces?
Or it could be 2 directors, a director for each site,
Okay.
and then the director would staff it. So if they had multiple staff there, the director plus 1 or plus 2, depending on the size of the space and how many kids they would take on, ages of those kids. And then the director works with the co-op of parents to determine pricing. It is advantageous for our staff in several ways. 1, just the convenience of location, and then 2, if it's married to a school day schedule and a school calendar, then it might attract more providers that are willing to provide that service for that schedule. And then also there's the lack of overhead, plus you're not hosting it at a third site or your own house. So there's some benefits to that. So I think this could be a cost savings to our staff, but also, just frankly, having a space in the Flathead Valley right now is tough to find. That, we're gonna see there's a daycare creates a shortage.
So my one other question with it was, with them using the space, are they using lunch space and playground as well?
Playground, but not lunch. So there's several hoops we have to jump through there, but I'm not proposing that. I would let the director work that out with our food service department. And each director does lots of things differently, as, you know, all the way down to the details of providing, weights and those things. Some provide it, and some parents provide it, so we just wouldn't be involved. Yep, just a room, and then the standard level of cleaning that we provide for all the other classrooms. And so, you know, there's lots of other cleaning that would happen, but that would be, we'll get this better.
Is there a change to the school district's insurance? Somebody else being in a space?
No, but there might be an opportunity for the daycare to fall under our insurance. So, you know, we had an initial conversation about that, and then that kind of fell off the radar. But I think when we identified this as a go, and we can start identifying some directors, then we can revisit that. Obviously, if it was a cost to the district, we wouldn't do it. But if the daycare could work under our current insurance, that would be another big benefit that potentially could reduce the price.
I have a couple things that I would like to say. I applaud the idea of putting childcare in a school. I think it would be really beneficial for especially the staff at the school. But I think there's a lot of things that like aren't maybe being thought of. You know, I mean, we're talking about ages of kids, how many people you're going to need in the space, how much space that you need for kids, and also like if you're only planning on doing it for a year, then that might hurt those parents more than help those parents, right? Like, because then they're not on the list for somewhere else, and then if this doesn't work out and you need the space for other students, then those people are missing out on a spot in another childcare. So I just wonder if you had really thought about all the options. I mean, like right now, we're talking about kids, there's so many kids in the valley that need summer care, after school care. Would it be maybe more advantageous and more helpful for parents to offer space for those kinds of things rather than trying to do a childcare in the facility and then maybe it not working out?
Yeah, I'd say that we've thought through all those things. There's not clear answers. Those are tough questions. You know, for the space, I would hope that we could grow space.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know, buildings maybe could find a space, but, these are year-to-year agreements and have to serve our student population first. And so you just we can't do that. The other part about, you know, being on the waiting list, we've told people, like, if you have daycare right now and you're trying to make a decision on stay on your provider list, stay, right? Mm-hmm. Because even if we were able to get 2 daycare sites, it's a fraction of the students that or the parents from the students that responded to the survey. We have 90 students right now looking for children of our staff looking. So we recognize that we're a very small part of Flathead Valley, but we're just, anybody we have a conversation with, we're asking them, you know, what ideas do you have too? So just trying to get more awareness and more conversation around this. I think this could be a developing challenge for us with staff retention. The price of daycare is pretty steep right now, plus the availability, and, you know, there's a price point that encourages people to continue to work for a school district when, you know, they could stay home and provide that care to their own children. Mm-hmm. So, but I welcome any ideas. I know you're pretty close to those circles too, so I welcome your ideas.
Do you think, would you have this director, I know it says it in here, but would you require the director to get licensed? They
Yep.
could follow all the state licensing?
Yep.
Regulations?
Yep.
So that'll make a difference in where your space is in the school.
Yep. And, you know, we've identified 2 spaces, and so the approval tonight is just like, can we move forward with this type of agreement? And then the next obstacle is pretty significant too, can the director, can I go up, find the director, and then does that space work? We're hoping they do, but, then ultimately, you know, the district, we just don't have the capacity to take on a daycare. And so we're just saying, hey, if you guys, if a group of parents want to come together and form a co-op and hire a director and jump through all this, you have the blessing of the district to do that, but they might not. I would suspect out of 50 staff members, there's going to be some energy towards doing it, but we'll see.
So you might just wanna have like licensing come and look at the space first, rather than trying to find like a director and put a co-op together first, just as maybe one roadblock out of the way.
Well, and I wonder if that's something that if we approve this, if the co-op of parents could be encouraged to do that. Encourage the co-op of parents to have licensing, come look at that.
I agree, but I also think that if the districts would get the licensor there first before they put the co-op together, right? Because then it's just a waste of resources. Like, if you have licensing come out, just give an assessment of the space that you're thinking of using for children, then you can go ahead and say, yes, this space is approved, let's go ahead and put a co-op together, rather than trying to find all the parents and put those pieces together, just to have licensing come and say, this isn't gonna work.
How would it work in other districts is a group of parents usually elect a lead liaison from that parent group to the director, and they take charge of those types of documents and details, and even disagreement is updated. I'd probably go that route just because we want to be careful and not dedicate administrative time to something that's outside of our primary jobs. And I think there's enough people here that they could probably pick it up and go, but that's a great suggestion. I took note. I think that's a legitimate first step.
Jennifer, your background in this is really helpful, so thank you for those suggestions. Any other comments or questions, Heather?
Question too, so, I mean, what kind of time frame with the amount of hurdles that need to be accomplished for this? At what point, if it's not gonna work, does it go back to the school like Edgerton and say, never mind, we won't be using this space? So it's available again for them to figure out what they're gonna use it for? Or is there a timeline that you've got with this, Matt, right now, like the next few weeks?
We put this out and be patient with them to get it coordinated for the summer, sometime in the fall. But if it's not getting any traction, we currently don't have plans to use it. So there's not.
I didn't know if we were just moving teachers out of those spaces and we were putting them, if the rooms are just there, then you don't have a need for a push.
I think you know, our spaces get used for different breakout rooms that can be used off and on during the day. There's nothing scheduled permanently.
So we've been able to have like the early kindergarten classes and count them into our A and B. Is there any like bigger discussions statewide or anything talking about, I mean, I know for a long time there was a conversation about universal preschool. Is there any talk about like including younger ages in A and B, or is 4 pretty much the cutoff still and nobody's really pursuing that at a higher level?
It's 5 is the cutoff for kindergartners, and you know, my dream would be that the legislature would pick that up and fully fund early kindergarten or preschool, but I don't think that's going to happen. You know, there's kind of usually this background conversation about doing it, and I think that the fact that we're one of, you know, a select few states that comparable than a grade level. We have 5 classrooms right now. We don't have the physical space if we were to do that, if we were to welcome every 4-year-old in there. So, you know, just like when kindergarten became, we used to start at first grade. When kindergarten, there was a startup energy towards kindergarten funds and, you know, all that stuff. It took a while for schools to adopt it and get everybody on board. I would expect a similar rollout. It's definitely not that. You know, these are littles. These are infants until they would be eligible for school, either early kindergarten, if they was there, or kindergarten.
Any other questions?
I was just gonna say, there is still talk at the state level about universal pre-K for 4-year-olds. And they're just trying to move the funds. It was in one group of funds, and now they've moved it to another, group of funds. So it'll go back into legislative session. But there's no way we could add every 4-year-old into our Kalispell schools. So it'd have to be a mixed delivery system, which is what they're still talking about. But there's a lot of hoops.
Any other questions? How about a motion?
Move to approve the KPS daycare MOU as presented.
Thank you, Heather. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Lloyd. Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Next up, policy update. This is the third and final reading for these policies.
This is everybody's favorite time of the evening.
Let's talk about a specific word.
Okay. Which one would you like to talk about? I don't. We have, I'll just briefly say that we have updated based off of last discussion around some of the policies where there were some recommended changes and some that we did not. One that was discussed at length was the copyright. Reached out to Mtsba to clarify intent on some of the language that was in there, and felt like that was clarified for us. So not recommending any additional changes at this point.
I have one comment on policy 1520, which is the first one listed there, which is a policy about board staff communications. And I know this is something that I am probably guilty of more than some of you, just because I have a relationship with former colleagues, with other teachers. And I know especially in light of the negotiations we just went through, of course, I, got questions, got phone calls about it. And it is very difficult to separate your personal and your board responsibilities under some circumstances. But this policy is really important for us to keep in mind that we have to be very careful when we are interacting with staff on our responsibilities. So I suggest we all take a close look at this one. And I support it, but I just want us to be aware of it. Any other questions from people?
On the restraint of plans.
Inclusion and restraint.
Yeah, Lance brought up in the committee meeting that he wanted to make changes, and I didn't.
I can't remember.
There was actually,
About, like, the rooms were added, and we just wanted to make sure that we were.
yeah, I think we've addressed all of the changes and, did some updating as well. And some of it is relative to the size of our district. You know, in a small K-8 school where they might only have 7 or 8 staff, and a policy being written for them, and what the chain of command is and where things get reported and those kind of things. Everything always comes back to me, and so that is there. But we've identified like district building level crisis teams, and not just like the superintendent is the crisis team. And just as an example, you know, as part of this, training of personnel in crisis conflict and management today, 18 administrators sat in a room all day and practiced reshredding map. And each other. I think I have some bruises on my arms. But yeah, so all of this, we're working through, and even in advance of the policy being adopted, we're taking, steps to make sure that we're adhering to that.
Rebecca, did you have another question? Your microphone's on. That's my signal. Just an aside here, I really like seeing the strike-throughs on here, the highlighted, and then the strike-through, the changes that we're making, and then that'll be cleaned up, final copy, so. Yeah, it is. It's just a good reminder. Oh, yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Any other questions on any of the policies? I know there was quite a few. Third and final readings, so.
I move to approve the third and final reading of the policy.
Thank you, Lance.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Scott. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Those are in the books. Consent agenda, elementary only.
Do I move to approve?
Thank you, Scott. Is there?
Second that.
Thank you, Lance. Elementary trustees, any other public comment? Elementary trustees in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. District-wide,
Do I move we approve the consent agenda district-wide as presented?
thank you, Will. Is there a second?
One second.
Heather, thank you. Been moved and seconded. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Informational items and reports, trustee reports. Start with Ursula.
I was going to say that the high school did send kids to nationals in Louisville, Kentucky. It's very exciting. I think the school sent just maybe like 15, almost 15 each or something like that. That's a lot of kids to travel really far across the country, and very exciting. So we'll see how they do in a week.
Lance?
No report.
Rebecca?
When I was looking at the resignations and terminations list, of course, Beth was on there, so that was a sad moment. But also Tracy Scott was on there. Really appreciate Tracy. Brought a lot of flair to the HR role, and it was always great to have her do her presentations. And also be someone.
Thank you, Will. Scott?
I just have one comment. I missed the Edgerton school visit, so I called Jen and set up another time to meet with her, and actually had the opportunity to
meet with her and staff during the presentation they had for Indian Education for All, and it was amazing. They brought in dance troupe from the Blackfeet tribe, their reservation, and they did an amazing job. It was a little bit over an hour that they danced and talked about culture and traditions, and Matt was there for most of it. And I forgot this today, but at the very end, they presented 3 of us with a Pendleton blanket as one of their traditions and some sweetgrass. And I will bring, was going to be Matt's, but it turned out to be mine. And I appreciate you leaving early, Matt. I'll show you how warm it keeps me. But it was just an amazing opportunity. So I guess I would recommend you guys miss school visit and really want to get to that school, get in contact with the building administrator and set something up. You never know what they got going on. I didn't know about this presentation that they had with the tribes. And it was amazing.
Heather?
I have no report.
Jennifer?
No report.
This is just the time when we just share things maybe we've seen in the district or
I will say then,
little tidbits.
I really enjoyed going to all the graduations. Like, it was really great. I thought they did such a nice job, all of them. And that LEC one, oh, it's just heartwarming.
Yeah. Diane?
No, it's been a month now, but, went to that, Kalispell Education Association, that, reception they had a month ago, and I'm so glad I went to it, and it was really neat to see the money that's been given out for those special grants to teachers and what they've done, being able to do some really special, unique, learning, opportunities in their classrooms. And then it was felt a little sheepish because, Dorothy announced, well, it was 100% giving from everyone on the board, 80% giving rate from everyone in, the administrators, and 37% with board members for the school board. So next year, yeah, that's us.
Yeah.
So next year, let's raise that rate, so when she sends out the information to the board, let's make sure we increase that. That's all.
Thanks for that reminder,
Yeah.
Diane. my only report. Oh, there's an echo.
That's Lloyd.
Lloyd, can you mute for a second? Oh, okay. My report is, some of you might not know, but Michelle Payne and I sit on what's called the Negotiated Rulemaking Committee for OPI. And our purpose is to make recommendations on Chapter 55, which relates to school accreditation. And you have probably seen this written up in the newspaper and seen it on a lot of news reports. It's a rather exciting committee to be on, but it's a little bit like policy committee here, in that we look at the nitty-gritty stuff. But very interesting, and if you have any thoughts on it, we have to wrap up this committee by the end of the month, and we have a ton of work to do. In fact, I'm leaving tomorrow for a 2-day meeting with them. Yes, stay tuned for more newspaper articles starting Monday, starting Saturday, probably. Sunday, because we don't have Saturday paper anymore. And that's all I have. So, Lloyd, do you have a report?
Yes, I would just like to say that the tour of Edgerton was absolutely amazing. It was really brave of those 2 young girls to walk us through the school and to help us learn more about their place. But I also thought it was actually eye-popping to me to find out that there are no adaptive playgrounds in the entire valley. We had talked about that, and something that I hope we can work on in the future to try to help some of the kids who have physical challenges to be able to recreate and not have to go through the struggles of, for instance, trying to roll a wheelchair through pea gravel. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting, but overall the tour was absolutely amazing. It was really neat going inside one of the schools and seeing it firsthand. And I'd also like to echo Jennifer's comment that being part of the graduations was really cool. I had done some senior photos for some of those kids, and to be able to stand up there on stage with them was very special. So that's about it.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Lloyd. Next up, administrative reports. Who wants to go first?
Okay.
Kelly.
Goes.
I just wanted to let you know that summer school is off and running. It started on Monday. The morning session goes from 8 to 11, Monday through Thursday. We had 140 students. And in the afternoon session goes from 12 to 3. So they're 3-hour blocks. And we have, in the afternoon, we have 120 students. So, and students can be in there to have credit recovery or credit deficiency. So if they're off pace from graduating in 4 years, they can take summer school to get back on pace. And then the credit recovery means that they probably didn't pass the course they and it is up in the A-Pod at Glacier, and we have all types of support services for those students, including special ed support, and also we are working with the health clinic, extra support for students and their families if they need it during. So it's a finely tuned machine, and I'm very proud of that model. Help the kids benefit from it. And then their graduation, they do have a second session in July, and their graduation, if you don't have it on your calendar yet, is Wednesday, July 27th at 11 in the Commons area. And it's a D graduation also, because there can be anywhere from 10 or more students that get that high school diploma, and the families are there, and it's a big deal for them. And just another comment is, we're winding the meeting down. I wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for yesterday's reception. After growing up in this town, that was the very first time we'd ever been to a reception in the mansion. And I mean, I've been through it. I used to go to the art shows there, little craft shows at Christmas time there. I've loved the mansion my whole life. I've never gone to reception there. So that is really going to be something I will cherish for a long time. I really appreciated you showing up. It was classy. The food, everything was just classy. And the beverage of choice being Diet Coke. I'm like, whoa, this is quite an affair here. I like that. And then, just on a side note, my husband and I are booked into Quinn's.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Kelly. Matt?
I'll start off with, echoing what Kelly said. It's fun to see people celebrate her and, just remember and recognize the impact she's left on the district. It's been fun to be part of that. It's always underspoken, but, I hope she goes big on. She's left generational impact. And also speaking of Kelly has started turning over files to, me. And, we had a lengthy meeting with Mr. Pissarro and myself, and I'm really excited to get the original copy of these documents I've been seeing for the year. She usually shares like the PDF version of a document with me, where I can go in and edit it. So it's really, I can't wait. I haven't seen it yet, but she promised that it's gonna be coming. I'm really excited about that. And then, onboarding Pete, and then, I guess with Callie leaving and Pete coming in, I'm really excited to see what this looks like when I'll work for Micah now. you're also looking forward to planning next year. We have a K-12 admin meeting tomorrow where we set some vision, work with them and do some practical work of setting calendars. And then also I'm going to have a data summit meeting with the elementary principals on Thursday. And that meeting is about reflecting on the current data we have, but then also just how we use data and how that plays with transformational learning ideas and instructional practices and school improvement plans, and then the strategic plan from the board, and creating a better system for how we integrate all of the hopes and dreams that we all have and coordinate those efforts. So I'm really excited about that. And then at the end of the year, it was really fun to see some culminating projects. So we had that Indian Ed grant, and one of the culminating projects was a partnership with Polson School, where our students were able to get together with some students from Linderman and Polson, and they were just able to enjoy some field activities on the banks of Flathead Lake, and just recognize that they were collaboratively working on real work, but they weren't focused on how different they were. So they just built natural friendships, and then they went home recognizing that they just did collaborative work with kids who were from native schools or kids who were from non-native schools, but that wasn't the focus. The focus was on the work that they were doing together. So that was just really fun to see and celebrate those teachers that participated in that. And then just a humble appreciation and thanks for supporting the agenda items tonight. Those are really important in the world and the people I work with, and so we're just excited about those opportunities.
Thanks, Matt. Micah? Denise?
Just a short report. I think I'm about 3 months in now, a little over 3 months in, and it's been a flurry of activity, and I've learned a lot, and I'm very appreciative of being here. I love all the people I work with. I've been working on budgets with department heads like facilities, IT, special education, and then my next steps are to meet with the building principals and walk through their budgets. And so it's been a huge learning curve, and I'm really enjoying it. This is what I've been up to.
Thanks, Denise.
So I have some bad news for Matt. Kelly has made me the owner of all the files. I'm just like, so you can ask. A couple of things, we talked a little briefly about CPI training, and we'll continue that. We have scheduled some training in August for additional staff and working on those kind of things. Matt brought up we have an admin retreat tomorrow where we'll be rolling out the strategic plan with the admin team. It's maybe a little premature in advance of the board retreat, but we want to get that into their hands. My lovely assistant Beth is working on a really beautiful looking document. Right? No, I've seen it. It's good. And then there's some other things that they're always going on. We had a pretty serious car accident up at Glacier High School a few weeks ago. Thankfully, all the kids survived, but it was a rollover accident. A student was ejected from the vehicle, lots of injuries. And with that comes concern, about, one, student driving behavior, and, what steps and things can we do to address that. There's some question about whether or not Wolfpack Way, the way it's currently designed and exists, if it's actually a road that is part of the city, or if it is school district property, and how you go about addressing some of those things. Certainly I've had people say, oh, we need to put speed bumps in, and we need to do these things, and it's like, okay, well, we can do those things as long as it's not a city road, but even then it requires engineering services, and it's something that you have to plow over, and they're quite expensive. Those roadways were built to city specs at the time, so they're curbed, guttered, so it's nothing simple about it, but we'll continue to look at it and how we can address it moving forward. We have a a new central office hiring process that will be going on for replacing Tracy. And so I'll be sending out information about that here in the near future. Also, I just can't seem to not find things to do, but I'm engaging in conversations with developers and architects to look at staff housing and maybe some ideas and concepts out there for somehow addressing some of those needs. So those things are in process. It's all exploratory conversations, but certainly looking at that. The transportation maintenance building, they've broken ground. We're getting updates daily on the progress. There have been some new challenges with the project. As an example, we have to have a sand oil separator, and we had it designed by more summarily for Universal Plumbing Code. Everything was great, and then the city gets a hold of the plan and they say, oh no, we have far more stringent requirements. So we went from a 250-gallon tank basically to collect sand and oil, and now we're at a 2,500-gallon tank. So just those kind of things coming. But Greg is managing all of that very well, and so on top of his other projects. But you know, I just gosh, June 10th rolled around, and I felt a sense of relief that we successfully completed another school year. It had some significant challenges this year with student suicides, again, with the pandemic and COVID, and, you know, so you brought up the 55% of teachers looking to leave the profession. And we've certainly seen some of that here, but just an acknowledgement of our administrative team, our teachers, our paras, our custodians. You know, when you're in it every day and you get to see the cooperation and the teamwork and everybody's pitching in to do the heavy lift. It was a really successful school year, and thank you to the board for your leadership, your guidance, your suggestions. You put in a lot of time in committees. There are a lot of districts that have no committees. They just go straight to a school board meeting and an agenda. You work really hard behind the scenes, and so we have you to thank for helping us complete another successful school year. So thank you. Good.
All right, excellent. Next up, safe return to schools and continuity of service plan that we have to have on our agenda every meeting.
We do, and we also have to have an update to that plan in June, and that plan gets resubmitted to the state, gets resubmitted to the federal government, gets resubmitted to our website, and we will have that update for you at our next board meeting.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Next up is public comment. Is there any public comment? Okay, then I'm not going to give my spiel. I do want to remind trustees that our next meeting is June 28th, and it is retreat starting at 3 o'clock. And this is just an opportunity to give us a little more time for discussion about things. So I hope everybody has it on their calendar. I also, it will be followed by our regular board meeting after that, the work session. And I know summertime is a really busy time for everybody. Just to make sure that we have quorums to our meetings. If you are gone on, you know, vacation or just can't make the meeting, please let either myself or Micah or Beth know that you will be gone so we can make sure we have quorums when we need it. I know, Rebecca, you told me about your vacations, but I think you're the only one I know of so far. I know I will be gone for some of those. All I had. So, anybody want to adjourn? Thank you, Lance. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Will. Any public comments? Seeing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. We are adjourned at 8:11.